In the future, everyone is immortal, except for this guy. His last regret? Ruining the Joker. Yeah, it's Jared Leto. Anyway, from the start, you can already tell this movie is going to seriously mess with your mind. I mean, who begins a movie with some crazy experiment about pigeons and pigeon superstition? In case you were wondering, here's what the pigeon superstition experiment is about. So this pigeon is in a cage, and whenever it presses a certain lever with its beak, a hole opens up on the wall of the cage and it gets to eat. But it closes again, and the pigeon goes back to the lever and presses it so it opens again, and the pigeon gets its reward. The reward is a plate of seeds, by the way. If this experiment was done on humans, the reward would be chocolate, or maybe ice cream. Soon, the scientists decide to switch up the pigeon, so they set a timer to release the seeds every 20 seconds. The pigeon wonders to itself, what did I do to deserve this? I mean, I didn't press the lever, so why is the seed being released? It figures it has to have done something, so if it was flapping its wings when the seed was released, it would then associate the flapping of its wings to getting a reward, and then start to flap its wings hoping for reward. So that's the basic idea of pigeon superstition. It's also probably the origin of rain dances. Anyway, moving on. So there's a narrator in the movie, and in the first scene, he's dead, and his body is literally being put in one of those mortuary fridge thingies. But then he wakes up in this underwater place, and then blacks out again, only to wake up in a bathtub. But then this guy shoots him dead, and then he dies, and wakes up in this post-apocalyptic hospital setting. He's very old now, and he's talking with a certain Dr. Feldman, who looks like some kind of mutant human type thing. We find out in this scene that our main character's name is Nemo Nobody. At least that's what he said. You can also call him Mr. Kraft for short. Mr. Can't remember an effing thing. Okay, see, that was actually funny because he can't actually remember anything. Nemo tells us he's 34, born February 9th, 1975, and he believes it's 2009. The only issue is that he's super old. In fact, he's 118 years old according to this newspaper he's holding. By the way, the paper is super cool because the images and text actually move and change real time. This is some Harry Potter shit. Anyway, Nemo wakes up into another reality again, and this time he's 34. He wakes up in his home with his wife beside him, but the way he's acting, it's like the house feels a little different to him. We learn that Nemo now has 3 beautiful kids, but just then a package arrives at the house, and Nemo checks it out. The package contains a picture of him, a woman, and 2 boys, and they look like they're a family. But then he's in this house he kinda doesn't remember, and 3 kids that may or may not be his because he called one of them Paul and he said he isn't Paul. Okay, this movie looks like it's going to do a number on me. So many threads to untangle, and we're not even 10 minutes into the movie for crying out loud. Anyway, Nemo kinda zones out again after not Paul tells him his name isn't Paul. Then he wakes up in this beautiful house with this boy, who happens to be one of the boys in that picture that got to him at not Paul's house. The boy calls him Dad. He also sees the woman who was his wife in the picture and finds out her name is Jean, and the boy who called him Dad, his name is Paul. He seems really confused at everything that's going on, and brother, I'm with you for real. This movie's already driving me crazy. Anyway, soon after Jean makes to go back inside their palatial mansion, she tells him that his friends are here. These friends are unimportant, so I'm not going to waste time on them. What's more important is that on the TV which Nemo is watching, and even in his world, everything begins to move backward until Nemo wakes up again in a different reality. This time he's married to someone else, and they are driving somewhere right behind a truck, but the truck explodes, and Nemo wakes up again at the futuristic hospital. We learn that Nemo is actually the last mortal man to live on Earth. Apparently, by some kind of scientific wizardry, everyone on Earth is now immortal, and owning your own stem cell modified pig is now a statement of class. With Nemo being some kind of museum relic, everyone in this post-apocalyptic New York is watching his life like it's some kind of Netflix series. I really hate the TV guy, by the way. He talks like someone whose life is determined by genetic mutation. Meanwhile, Dr. Feldman reveals some interesting news. Nemo has no records anywhere, so there's nothing at all on him anywhere in their world. No one knows who he is, probably hence the name Nobody. Dr. Feldman is using hypnosis to get Nemo to relax and get him to remember the day he got into the lab. He goes back to this facility type of place. He's got a uniform and all, Burberry sweater vest, gray slacks, and a white shirt, and his hair makes him look like he could be in a metal band. He tries leaving the facility, but it's obvious this place is not real because there are all these weird things going on. Anyway, he's grabbed and forced back into the facility, and then his memories go further back to before he was born. He says that before you're born, you know everything, and when it's your time to be born, the angels of oblivion touch your lips, which makes you forget everything, and then you've got to go find your parents. Fortunately or unfortunately, the angels miss Nemo, but he goes down to look for a family match anyway. Apparently, parents come and pitch to you as a baby, and then you get to say who gets the pleasure of cleaning up your poop and dealing with your teenage rebellion for the next 18 years. One woman smelled nice, and her husband told the story of how they met. The man explains to Nemo that his meeting with his wife was meant to be. Nemo liked the couple, so he picks them as his parents. I wish I could have picked mine. But the baby is giving Boss Baby or maybe Matilda vibes. He's the one narrating, and he seems to know quite a lot for his age. Once again, Nemo wakes up in his hospital bed. Actually, a clumsy journalist wakes him up. He wants to learn from Nemo what the world was like before quasi-immortality and telomerization. That is, the endless renewal of cells that pretty much makes them undieable. Well, I could have told you for free and you wouldn't have had to wake up poor Nemo. It's very simple. The world sucked. And Nemo agrees with me. He tells the journalist, the car's polluted, we smoked cigarettes, we ate meat. Wait, come on, that can't be so bad. But wait, there's a big shocker waiting. Apparently in this new quasi-immortal world, clapping is now obsolete. Pretty sure Nemo is happy to have not been telomerized because, I mean, yeah, you live forever, but at what cost? We move from the interview to another memory. Now Nemo is 9 years old and having a full-on existential crisis. Relatable. In this scene, we also see Elise, Jean, and Anna as their younger selves. They all seem taken by Nemo, and I guess Nemo likes them too, because next thing we know, Nemo is marrying each of these girls. Now women in his imagination, I guess. Meanwhile, there's a lot of talk about time, the difference between illusion and reality, and the general unpredictability of things. And Nemo's memories continue to appear in bits and pieces. In one of his memories, Nemo is having a conversation with his mom and telling her about the Angels of Oblivion and how he can remember the future. But of course his mom thinks he's crazy, probably even needs a shrink. While all of that is going on, the TV watching world of New York is deciding whether or not to let Nemo die a natural death. Then we move back to Nemo's memories at 9 years old. That's when he finds that his mom was cheating on his dad with Anna's father, and then his parents decide to have a divorce. They're now at a train station and Nemo has to decide which parent he wants to stay with. At the last minute, he decides to go with his mom, and his father is left standing outside. But then in another version, he doesn't catch up with the train and instead stays with his father. So I guess what's happening here is that Nemo is able to remember multiple versions of his life, and different ways his life could have turned out because the Angels of Oblivion didn't touch his lips. That's why he's recalling all these different realities of his past. So first we get to see Nemo's life with his mom. Typical rebellious teenager, he never smiles and keeps acting up. Anyway, his mom invites her lover for dinner, and Nemo tells the man that he's going to get crushed by a train on a Wednesday. He gets a slap for his efforts and also for ruining his mom's chances of getting clapped. Nemo's mom is obviously frustrated, but her lover is scared witless. The next day at school, Nemo meets Anna. She's a new student at his school and they seem to like each other. I guess they become friends because one day, they go to the beach together. While there, Anna invites Nemo to come and take a swim with her and her friends, but he calls them idiots, and Anna's like, screw you. It's the end of their friendship for a very long time, until he's 34 and he meets her one day, but now she's married with 2 kids. The regret is instant and painful. Right after that, Nemo remembers another version of his memory at the beach with Anna. In this version, he's less stupid and just acts like a normal human being and tells Anna that he can't swim, and so Anna chooses to sit with him. Nemo then projects into the future where he and Anna end up being married. Just before that though, Nemo comes back to reality, if we can call it that. This is when he finds out that Anna is actually the daughter of his mother's lover. Awkward, but apparently not for these two who are supposed to be future step-siblings, because they are busy playing footsie under the table while their parents eat. Anyway, Nemo wakes up again as his 118-year-old self. The journalist is still by his bedside waiting for him. Nemo begins to talk about himself. This time he imagines himself at 15, in love with Anna. In his memory, he and Anna are now officially step-siblings. Their parents live together and all. Nemo's mom even refers to Nemo as Anna's brother when she speaks to her. But of course, she violently disagrees, and why not? Turns out these two have been clapping. Yeah. Moving on, Nemo soon moves on to another version of reality, the one in which he stays with his dad. His dad seems to have been disabled by some accident, and Nemo alone takes care of him. From the look of things, he's now a sci-fi writer and spends his free time working on his novel. Some days after, Nemo goes to a school dance where he meets Elise. She seems very intense and full of drama. Turns out she suffers from mental health issues, and she makes Nemo swear to spread her ashes on Mars when she dies. Weird, but okay. I'm inclined to tell her that it's a crazy idea, because apart from the fact that you can't know for sure that the person will outlive you, the request is ridiculous, and talking about cremation does not exactly make for a sweet meet-cute conversation. But Nemo's drawn to her anyway. The next scene is a little confusing because in it, Nemo is married to Anna, and they have 2 kids. He's also working as a narrator for an educational TV program, but then he has an accident on his way home to her where he loses control of his car and drowns. Now he wakes up at the hospital with Feldman, who's still trying to get Nemo to remember. When Nemo remembers this time, he's back with Anna at the home of his mother and her now husband. Like before, his memory switches again to an alternate reality where he is with his dad and not his mom. He meets Elise again, but this time she's back with her douchebag boyfriend, the one she dumped at the party to be with Nemo. She doesn't even acknowledge Nemo. It's like he doesn't even exist. This is why love is bad for you. Anyway, Nemo gets mad and runs away on his bike, but then there's a ghastly accident and he gets rather badly beat up. When he wakes up at the ER, he forces himself to go back to before the accident where he meets Elise with her douchebag boyfriend, Stefano. Quite the name. He tries to convince her that he loves her, but as these things always go in movies and sadly real life, the good girl always goes for the jerk, ignoring every possible red flag that could possibly exist. No, I'm not taking this personally. Just kidding. Hurt, Nemo makes a rather interesting decision. And no, it's not that he will never love again. He decides instead that he's going to take his life into his own hands. So he's going to marry whoever dances with him first that night. Weird flex, but okay. And so he goes to his school dance where he meets Jean. And so they both dance and he decides he's never leaving anything to chance again. He's marrying Jean. He's going to be rich. He's going to live in a big house painted yellow with a garden and 2 kids, Paul and Michael. He's going to buy a red convertible and have a pool in his house. He's also going to learn to swim and won't stop till he's succeeded. Well, he does everything as he has said, and life turns out exactly as he wants it. But as Jean would reveal to him, he ends up finding it boring to be in control of every single thing. I guess this should teach my control freak self to stop being so worried for the unknown. Just kidding. As long as I'm not omniscient, I will continue to be anxious, and you can't stop me. The idea of sitting back and letting things play out because I can't do anything to control it does not appeal to me. Anyway, Nemo's in another reality now, the one where he's with Anna and his mom and stepfather. By now, his mom and stepfather are having issues, and they are getting a divorce. Nemo is upset when he finds out, which leaves me a little confused. I would have thought both kids would feel relief, knowing that they can now clap, without it being super uncomfortable. But I guess being step-siblings made things more exciting. Super weird. Totally can't relate. Anyway, Anna and her father leave for New York in 10 days, and the two lovesick teenagers promise that their love would remain forever. Anna tells him to wait for her at the lighthouse every Sunday until she comes to see him again. Of course, she never shows. It always happens that way. People that tell you to wait for them at a certain place on a certain date never even show. In the history of making such appointments, no one ever kept that appointment. Ever. To be fair, Anna did try to send letters, but in the most textbook movie world fashion, Nemo's mom keeps tearing out the letters. So Nemo never gets Anna's letters. Years pass and Nemo becomes a pool boy. He seems super fixated with pools for some reason, even though he can't swim. I too want all the things that I can't have. Once again, the memories change and Nemo's in the ER. I guess from the accident in that memory where he ran away after Elise decided to go back to Stefano. In his head, he's imagining writing his sci-fi novel. He also imagines being married to Elise. Apparently, she's still battling the same mental health issues from when she was a teenager. And her kids? They are so sweet and understanding about their mom's plight and all. Not really. They're always talking about how their mom is always tired, how they were going to leave the house if she ever gets one of those meltdowns again, and oh, how Nemo's jokes were old people humor and boring. Boomer moment. To be fair, Nemo did a terrible job representing his generation with that joke. What's small and green and goes up and down? Come on, Nemo. The pee in the elevator joke is not even funny to the dad who invented it anymore. But hey, you can't blame them. These things can be tough on kids, and let's be honest, kids aren't exactly the most selfless humans at a certain age. So having to deal with issues like a depressive parent could cause them to act out. But I've gotta hand it to Nemo. He's actually super caring and super strong through it all, because Elise gets many episodes, but he's always there for her and for the kids. Anyway, so crazy thing. One of these days, he actually sees Anna. In this reality though, he's married to Elise, so the two pass by each other and don't seem to recognize who the other person is. In the next scene though, Nemo's once again a pool worker and he meets Anna at a train station. This time they recognize each other and hit things off immediately. Anna says she needs some time though, and she isn't ready to commit just yet. She gives Nemo her number and tells him to call her in 2 days, and then they meet at the lighthouse. Finally, why they made that plan when the last appointment they made didn't work beats me, but here we are with the lighthouse appointment again. Anyway, guess what? Just as soon as Anna leaves, there's a drizzle and a raindrop destroys the number she wrote down on the paper for Nemo. Just read the room, guys. The universe is not down for you guys. But lovesick Nemo, of course, waits and waits for her at the lighthouse. Unsurprisingly, Anna never shows, except in his dreams. Alright, so we're back to his reality with Elise, but things are kinda different here. On their way home from their wedding, there's a gas truck in front of their car. The truck explodes, killing Elise and leaving him badly injured. Physically he heals, but the scar remains. An illustration of how his soul never recovered from his wife's death. At this point, the journalist is properly flustered. What exactly is the truth? Did Elise die or not? Did he have kids or not? But of course, Nemo has no answer for him. From there, we move on to Nemo's reality with Jean as his wife. I really feel bad for her, because it feels like she really got the shorter end of the stick. Unlike Anna and Elise, there's nothing to tell us that Nemo loves Jean. I mean, he likes her just fine, but even pet dogs get more love than Jean is getting. In this reality though, he's quite rich and he leaves everything he owns to Jean in his will. Jean doesn't seem excited about it, and my response to that is, money might not buy love, but isn't it better to drown your tears in a private island in the Caribbeans than in a communal bathroom in a lousy apartment in New York? Anyway, he later tells Jean he wants to buy a fishing rod, but he ends up at the airport where he assumes the identity of a certain Daniel Jones. We don't know who this Daniel Jones is, but Nemo has decided to leave all his choices to a coin toss, so he's just going with the flow, I guess in a bid to make his life less boring. Anyway, the reward for his spontaneity is a target on his back, because a hitman comes and claps him dead. When the scene changes, he's 15 years old again, and back at the hospital after his motorbike accident. His parents come to see him, but in his head, he's writing a sci-fi novel. He also remembers being back with Elise, who is regretting marrying him and wishing she was back with Stefano, her crazy boyfriend. They never forget the crazy boyfriend. One night, Elise just up and leaves him and the kids. Typical. The realities are changing much faster now. Now Nemo's in a reality where he's lost Elise in that gas truck accident. In this memory, he also loses his coworker, and on attending his funeral, finds that his coworker's wife is guess who? Anna. Both of them feel like they've known each other before, but they don't do anything about it. At least not at the burial, which is good because these two tend to have a thing for highly unconventional relationships. Anyway, once again, Nemo drowns in his car. The airbag is deployed and the words "game over" are written on it. That's kind of on the nose, but okay. He then wakes up at the hospital with Dr. Feldman, who finally brings him out of his hypnosis. Meanwhile, back in real life, the people of New York are still casting their votes on whether or not Nemo should be left to die for a chance to win a vacation to the moon. As the movie comes to an end, Nemo is back in that world where everyone is wearing the weird sweater vest uniform, and then after decoding a series of subliminal instructions, he finally gets to an abandoned house where his 118-year-old self explains what's going on. Old Nemo explains to young Nemo that young Nemo doesn't exist in old Nemo's world. What? Whatever. He cannot explain why though. He says only the architect, who is 9-year-old Nemo, does. What? Okay. Old Nemo then ends with an instruction to young Nemo to make sure he stays alive until February 12th, 2092 at 5:50 a.m. What is going on? Suddenly, Nemo's back with the journalist, and it's 5:41 5:41 a.m. 9 minutes to go. The journalist is crazy confused because Nemo's stories and memories are confusing and contradictory. I mean, is Nemo dead? Is he alive? Does he exist? Does he not? Well, here's the answer. Neither old Nemo, nor the journalist, nor the people of New York exist, because they're all the imaginations of a 9-year-old boy faced with an impossible choice: to leave with his mother or stay with his father. This whole movie was that? Oh my god. In the end, Nemo chooses neither and instead runs away. Based. We're then taken to the future where Nemo's waiting at the lighthouse for Anna. This time she shows, and both of them hug each other and clap their hands. Maybe. Meanwhile, old Nemo's in his final minutes back in New York. His last words are Anna, and seconds after that, he dies at 5:49 a.m. When the clock turns 5:50, time begins to reverse, and old Nemo wakes up as time takes him back to Anna when they were both 9 years old and throwing rocks at the water. Wow, that's about all I can say after this movie. Moral of the story? Wow.